That is startling to me. At the time, I was a kindergarten teacher. I remember when planning process was going on, how excited teachers were about the idea of having a children's museum, because as teachers, we knew the value and we knew how important that was for a community. But unfortunately, most of us had never really been to a children's museum, so we didn't even know what to expect. So when Lynn Meadows opened, it was like this diamond in the rough right here in our own backyard. And so as a teacher, I was able to take advantage of the whole idea of, oh, wow, I get to go on field trips to a children's museum right here in our backyard.
Welcome back to another episode of Bottled Up. Today, we have an exciting discussion with Cindy DeFrances, the Lynn Meadows Discovery Center Executive Director. Lynn and I delve into the rich history and remarkable growth of this beloved children's museum located on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. Since its inception, the Lynn Meadows Discovery Center has become a vital and diverse hub of family-focused fun and learning, consistently innovating to provide engaging experiences for children of all ages. From their inspired and community-driven mission, their resilience through Hurricane Katrina, to the new, incredibly popular additions like the Treehouse and hands-on science exhibits, this Discovery Center is a testament to community strength and imagination. Enjoy this episode as Cindy takes us through this heartwarming journey from boosting museum visitorship to over 120,000 in the face of challenges like the COVID-19 pandemic, and highlights the enduring people, staff, and support that keeps this magical place thriving. Welcome to this episode of Bottled Up. Today, I have Miss Cindy DeFrances, the Executive Director of Lynn Meadows Discovery Center. Miss Cindy, thank you for coming on the show.
Thank y'all so much for having me. I'm really excited to, spread the great things that are happening at Lynn Meadows Discovery Center.
Yes, ma'am. So I know Lynn Meadows has been around for over 25 years now, and it has roots that started a lot earlier than that 25 years. So I kind of wanted to go into the origins of where Lynn Meadows came from, the ideas and the people who were involved in creating it, and kind of just go back to the origin story of Lynn Meadows. So explain to the listener, where did the idea and the concept of Lynn Meadows come from?
Well, great question, because Lynn Meadows itself actually opened in 1998, but it was a dream that had been in the works for a very, very, very long time. And the history of it actually goes back to the 60s. JA, the Junior Auxiliary of Gulfport, has always been very involved with the community. And so back in the 60s, there was actually a teen center that was built, and it was operated down at Jones Park. And the city members, community members, helped pay for that building. And the JA members were the ones who actually volunteered their time and went to the teen center and, had teen parties and oversaw what was happening at the teen center. And it was obviously a very well-received place in the community. And so back in 1969, Hurricane Camille came through and wiped the center out. And so when the center got wiped away, there was actually insurance money that went to Junior Auxiliary. And so they held on to that money with the intention of opening another teen center at some point, and that just never really happened. And so JA members throughout the years would do community surveys asking the community how they should spend that money. And through one of the surveys, they found that, arts programs were being cut in the school districts. And so they thought that spending the money on an arts program would be the best use of the funds. So they started an arts program in the old Hansborough Elementary School, which is now where the Rouse's and McDonald's is located right there now in Lorraine. So that was kind of the intention of that money at the time. And they did open an arts center that stayed open for several years. But I think the community still was not convinced that that was the best use of the funds, and JA didn't think it was the best use of the funds. And so they did more community surveys, and during that time, they realized that Mississippi did not have a children's museum. And so a lot of the JA members, Carol Lynn, of course, Carol Lynn Meadows and Rose Allman, were the two spearheads behind that. And tragically, Carol Lynn and Joe's daughter died in a tragic accident in 1984. And so Carol Lynn, throughout that time, was always thinking that she wanted to do something to remember her daughter. And so that's when JA started, toying with the idea of a children's museum. And so they started just visiting children's museums all around the country. And they sent some JA members, and there were other volunteers from the community that went out. And so that was their focus, that they were going to open a children's museum. And it happened. It took many, many years. I think they started that process in 1991. They started looking for places, and the old Mississippi City Elementary School sat vacant right here on Dolan Avenue.
Yep.
And that's when Carol Lynn just had this vision. She came here with Rose. They saw the building as more than just an old, dilapidated, rundown school building. They saw potential for it to become a children's museum. And so with lots of work from community members, they made the dream come true. And so it took about 7 years for them to raise enough funds. And that was going out and meeting with every community organization and going to the state legislature and going to all the city council meetings. And so the junior auxiliary gave them $50,000 as seed money to start their journey. And that's how Lynn Meadows came to be.
It's an incredible story to hear that, just from an idea and how strong an idea in the right people's minds can, and perseverance. I mean, 7 years is not a short amount of time.
No.
To a lot of people in today's society would get sidetracked, would decide, I don't think this is ever going to happen. I think that through the perseverance of, I know Miss Rose really well. And I think I'm Miss Carol Lynn. I don't know if I've met her before. I think I probably have, but to go through 7 years of trying to create something for the community it says a lot about them as well. And it says a lot about the community for supporting it, so I do know that it is kind of crazy to think that Mississippi did not have a children's museum.
That is startling to me. At the time, I was a kindergarten teacher. And so I remember when the planning was happening, when the planning process was going on, how excited teachers were about the idea of having a children's museum, because as teachers, we knew the value and we knew how important that was for a community. But unfortunately, most of us had never really been to a children's museum, so we didn't even know what to expect.
Right.
And so when Lynn Meadows, opened, it was like this diamond in the rough right here in our own backyard. And so as a teacher, I was able to take advantage of, the whole idea of, oh, wow, I get to go on field trips to a children's museum right here in our backyard.
And you don't have to drive to New Orleans.
Exactly.
I remember as a kid going to the Children's Museum in New Orleans, and then whenever Lynn Meadows opened up, it kind of changed the game, because now we could drive, 15 minutes.
Yes.
and have the same experience as you would have driving 60, 70 miles.
Exactly. And, I think one thing that sets us apart, or did even at that time, from the Children's Museum in New Orleans, is that museum was right in the middle of downtown.
Yes.
There was no outdoor space. I mean, you literally had to walk into a building, and your entire time was spent inside of a building. And so I think that definitely sets us apart here. We have beautiful outdoor space and, over 8 acres, and, children can run free and have a great time and play in the tree houses and go to Kids Street. And, we've got musical instruments outside. So just having the whole outdoor experience is an experience in itself.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I remember, you're exactly right. You would show up and you're literally off the street in New Orleans, and then you're inside of a 2-3 story building.
Yes.
And then whenever you're done, you're right back out on the street. So
exactly.
It is a different feel. And plus you're only 2 blocks up from the beach, which it was perfectly positioned, in my opinion, to be at that spot, So 25 years, that's a pretty long time for facility to be operating, Miss Cindy. So how long have you been with Lynn Meadows or been a part of the staff of Lynn Meadows?
I started in 2011, so I've been here 13 years. And so I've been here half the time that the museum's actually been open, which is incredible to me that, time has just flown. But it's been an amazing experience, and I have seen the growth, over 13 years. When I first started in 2011, our visitorship was around 50,000 visitors a year. And this past year in 2023, we exceeded 120,000 visitors
Oh,
came.
wow.
Yeah. So a lot of that has to do with just the things that we offer and the location. And we are in a tourist destination, and families are looking for things to do with their children when they come into town. And we're the perfect spot. So it's just things that we have going on now are so different from what we started with when I started in 2011.
Yeah, I mean, I think that was going to be one of my questions was how many people annually come through there. And so, I mean, I do know that my daughter is in kindergarten, and I think it's the first Monday of every month she gets to come to Lynn Meadows every month.
Yes, and that is a totally free field trip for the students. We've been working with the Gulfport schools ever since I've been here. And I think even prior to that, of course, I'm sure the museum was working very closely with the school district, but we actually have a grant that we provide STEM education every Monday and every Wednesday for kindergarten students in the Gulfport School District. So every school is included in that in the Gulfport schools. And so they come for their STEM education. They also get the field trip. They can eat, and have a picnic here on the grounds. And that has been an ongoing relationship that we've had now for many years with the school district.
I think that's a great thing because from listening to you and kind of knowing a little bit about the center, that's exactly what it was designed to do.
Yes. I love listening to Carol, Lynn, and Rose talk about their history of why they started it. And, I think Carol Lynn has always said that Lynn was going to school to be a teacher. And so she could not think of a better way to honor her daughter than to know that Lynn Meadows is continuing that learning experience for children, not necessarily in a school setting, but in a fun, hands-on, environmentally friendly, beautiful location. So it just, it makes me feel good to know that we are able to provide something in addition to what children are receiving in school.
Oh, absolutely. I wanted to kind of ask, and I don't know if you know, but you probably do, the origins of how I know that you've described the center as whimsical.
Oh,
Where,
yes.
whenever the design came out, in the late '90s or the mid to late '90s, the design came out to build it. Who was kind of at the forefront of the overall feel and kind of look of the design of the building?
To my understanding, and speaking with Carol Lynn and Rose all of these years, it was a community effort. I mean, it truly was that they involved the community from the very beginning, and that included, business leaders. It included just all different stakeholders from the community, teachers, parents. They included kids. They had kids on that same committee who everybody was able to give their idea. Many of those members went out to children's museums all across the country and just came back and put together all of their ideas of what they saw and what they thought would work best here for our community. And so they hired local architects and local builders, but they also used an outside children's museum designer, someone who
Got
had,
it.
yeah. And I think that person was from New Orleans. And so it was still, rather local. And
Yes.
and so that's how it all came to be. It was, just tons of ideas from so many different people.
I think that's an interesting concept of basically creating a forum of every person. Because I mean, normally you would think, oh, it's just going to be adults. We're not going to include kids. They'll just get what they get. You know what I mean?
Right, right.
And actually having them be vocal in the creation of a place is very interesting, honestly. And it's kind of it's kind of progressive when you think about the way that things run, where it's like we're going to design the playground. He's like, well, are you going to have the kids say what they want? Like, no, we're just going to pick one of these playgrounds and we're going to get it. And they just will get to play on it and do what they do, you know? But actually getting input from children for a children's museum is interesting.
Yes, and I think when you come to the museum, if you were a child coming to the museum back in 1998 or the early 2000s, you'll see a lot of the same elements here in the museum, just in a more updated version. And we have so many generations now who are coming back to the museum, and they like the idea that that we have some things in place that are original, yet we have some brand new things that are completely new and modern and different from what they remember as a child. But just the grocery store, for instance, when they walk, when I see a parent who's coming for the first time with their child who is coming for the first time, but they've been here when they were a child,
right?
They love the idea of going and seeing, oh my God, I remember the grocery store. That was my favorite place, or that was my favorite part. Or if they go down to the depot where the train is downstairs, it's like, oh my gosh, I remember this. But then when they see the pet vet, they're like, oh, I don't remember this, but oh my God, my child loves it. This is amazing.
Yeah, normally when you're in situations like that, especially like my age, like millennial parents, everything's a little smaller. And it's like I live around the corner from my elementary school, the old Westminster Academy, and my daughter, they turned it into the Den, which is like I think you're kind of
yes, an amazing place. Yes.
Oh yeah, she does tumbling in my old gym.
Oh.
And that building was massive when I was a kid. And I walk in there and I'm like, man, I feel like I could lay down and touch both sides of this thing. Like, so I totally get what you're saying about watching. And I think that's another thing for some reason. And I don't know if this is specific to our area. It might be just specific to anybody, but you feel some comfort in watching your kids enjoy the same things that you got to do and seeing it from another side. And it's really interesting to me to, and see, all right, did they like the same thing that I like? Did they like, okay, so they really enjoy this. And you're right. They have added a lot of stuff since its inception when we were kids. So I think it's great that it's stood the test of time, and not only has it stood, but it's innovated and grown to what it is today.
Absolutely. And I think another, true testament to that, it is, family focused and fun and learning and, memorable. Is almost daily we have 5-star reviews on TripAdvisor or on Google, or just people, commenting on our Facebook page, and they tag us and with their pictures of their children here. And so it's just so rewarding to see that. And a lot of times they do mention that, they are so glad that their children are getting to experience what they were able to experience when they were a child. And so it is very rewarding.
Oh, absolutely. What has been the most recent renovation or addition to Lynn Meadows? The most recent one, because I don't remember. I think is it the outdoor area?
We did expand our property to the south with a new treehouse. It's not a treehouse. It's a large deck, and we have telescopes that overlook the Gulf. And there's and on the back side of it, there's slate panels where you can do art with water and watch it evaporate. We have big musical instruments down there that you can play on, and so that is one of our newer developments. Inside, we have a new area called the Sensory Space, developed or imagined by Alex Hudson, and she is an employee here. And during one of our staff meetings, we just had this little space. It's in between the science room and the TV station that was not being utilized it just wasn't being utilized. It needed something new in there. And so Alex is one of our employees who came up with the idea that we needed a sensory space for parents who have children who need to have a calming spot, or for, children who just want to chill out. And so she helped design it, and we we designed it together, and we ended up with that space. And it is probably the most photographed space in the museum now. It has this large bubble tube.
Oh, I used to love that
Yes.
I remember that was probably my most recent memory is when the hula hoop, you stand in it and the hula hoop goes up and you're inside of a bubble.
Yes, yes, yes. That's from the New Orleans Museum. That is one of their signature exhibits, and we have talked about having that type of exhibit here. We just don't have that yet, but we have talked about incorporating one of those. But yeah, so that is one of our newest rooms here, and then we have Sun Earth Universe. It's based around just everything that you can imagine under the sun. It's a lot of sciencey type stuff, but very hands-on so that children have a better understanding of the world around them. And we just added a Mars rover exhibit to it where children can actually build a Mars rover.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so those are the newest ones. And we are working on renovating the tree houses. I don't know if you realize Pete Nelson, the treehouse master. If you
Yeah, I
ever,
know. I used to watch his show.
okay, well, he was one of the original. He built the original tree houses outside,
Oh, really? I didn't know that.
and we just had him back here a few months ago. We just recently received some funds to be able to renovate the tree houses because they have withstood the test of time. They've actually been here since 1997, and they did not
Man,
get destroyed during Hurricane Katrina. They
I'll tell
had
you what, he should put that on his resume.
yes.
Because those things have gone through, they've taken a beating since.
They have. And so that's just, it's time to do some renovations with those tree houses. And so he came to give us some advice. I mean, he physically came back to Lynn Meadows and walked the grounds with us, went out there, checked out his tree houses, and was so surprised to see that they were still doing just as great as the day he built them. So,
Well, that's good design.
yes, very, very good. So
So
we're
that's kind of the next project that y'all are looking at wanting to do.
yes, that, and then out there in that same area of the yard, we are going to also be building an outdoor classroom so that we can have multiple uses for the classroom. But, on beautiful days like today, when our kindergarten students are here doing, STEM learning, instead of being inside, we can take them outside, to the outdoor classroom and actually do hands-on activities outside with, among the trees, being out
Oh,
there.
absolutely.
So that is one of our newest projects. And
Well, I think that that's great that, it keeps growing and the community keeps supporting the Discovery Center because I mean a lot of people don't understand how much the community needs places like this. And it provides an outlet for kids who might not know that they have a certain interest and then they're exposed to something and it basically could change the direction of what they want to do with their life. You know what I mean? And if they just are in school and, just doing classwork and that kind of thing, not that there's anything wrong with that. It's highly important for them to, progress and learn, but it's other activities like this that kind of steer people into what they want to do for the rest of their lives. It kind of spurs science and then like, well, they really, really like science. And the reason why I like it is because I found out this and this at the Discovery Center. So I think that the place that this facility holds in the community, is extremely important.
it really is. And Carol Lynn has shared a letter that she received from a young man who is now an engineer. I don't remember if it's a mechanical engineer, some type of engineer. And he said that he started his love for engineering by coming to the museum and participating in STEM activities that were being offered. And then the design of the climbing structure in the center of the museum. And that just sparked his curiosity and and he went forward from there. And he said that he attributes his love for that and his reason for becoming an engineer from the time that he spent at the museum with his grandmother. And so he actually took the time to write Carol Lynn a letter, just letting her know what the museum meant to him as a child.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean that's exactly what I was thinking. I mean, it's proven that it stimulates certain parts in people's heads and imaginations that allows them to, hone in on what they might want to do. I know that my youngest daughter, my kindergartner, she's really, really loves art. And you can give her, some printer paper and just sit her down, and she's good for 30 minutes to an hour, with crayons, markers, pencils, whatever, and she's ready to go. So I do know that she loves going to the Discovery Center every Monday, because she talks about how she gets to do that. I wanted to ask you a little bit about what the Discovery Center is doing besides just being the building. I know that you guys have been expanding a lot of community outreach efforts and that kind of thing. Kind of walk me through and the listener through what is Lynn Meadows Discovery Center doing in the community as far as outreach is concerned to kind of help families and other things like that.
Yes, we have always done outreach. I mean, the museum has always been out in the community, especially for community events. We're out there for Cinema by the Shore and Easter egg hunts and citywide events, or if a business is having, a family opportunity and invite us, we go. We go to, schools all the time for their family nights or, any of their special events. And that's kind of where we've been with our outreach until 2020. When 2020 hit, we recognized that we are a brick and mortar place and that people were not able to get out and come to the museum. And so we figured out a way to go out and reach people in the community because we didn't want people to forget about us, that we were still here and that we were not going away. So the first place that we started working with actually was Feed My Sheep. I talked to some of the folks over there about how we could get involved because they were beginning to see more children come to, eat meals there. So we started making kits here at the museum, and we just call them Discovery at Home kits, and they're STEM related, art related, math related. We just changed them up each week. And I would just go by, Feed My Sheep and drop those off for the families who were stopping by Feed My Sheep. And so that was 2020, and we're still going strong and still continuing that. But we've done a lot more now with that type of programming. We've reached out to a local Section 8 housing complex, which is less than a mile and a half away from the museum.
Oh,
And
wow.
yeah. So we go there. We do the same thing. We drop off the kits over there. We opened up a free little library there at their apartment complex, and we keep the library stocked. We have free Friday nights for the community, but every free Friday night, CTA has partnered with us, and they actually go over to that apartment complex, and they pick up families and drop them off at Lynn Meadows and come back, pick them up, and drop them back off at home. And so that has been an ongoing great relationship that we have with the apartment complex, with CTA, and the families get to come here and play. And so those are families that would never, ever be able to come to the museum. And a lot of things that I've learned from that is that, we take so many things for granted.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Transportation. These families, there are a lot of families there who have no form of transportation. And so that is one reason why they would never be able to come to the museum. So with CTA picking them up and dropping them off at the museum, they're able to come and have a great family night and have fun, just like every other family in our community. So that's been very rewarding for us. But we offer so many other things. We have a program called Museums for All, which is a EBT card program for anybody.
Okay.
Anybody who comes to the museum with an EBT card can get in for a reduced rate of $3 per person. Like I said, we have our free Friday nights every last Friday of the month. Anybody from anywhere can come and play from 5 o'clock to 8 o'clock. We've started a program with the Harrison County Library System. All 8 of the library branches have a museum pass or several museum passes. If you hold a library card, you can go to the library, check out a museum pass, and you can come to the museum for free with that pass.
That's a really cool concept. How did y'all come up with that one? I mean, there's no rough edges on that.
No. I guess in 2020, when we started doing additional outreach, we also were working, we had just gotten a grant through IMLS, which is the Institute for Museum and Library Services. And one of the projects that we were tasked with was to figure out how we could do more outreach in our community to better serve our community and to make sure that our community was introduced to the museum and to the library. It was a joint effort between us and the library. And so that's how we started working with the Section 8 housing complex, because the library was a part of that also. But I guess just throughout the time, I was like, oh my gosh, why could we just not do a simple pass at the library? And that's kind of a win-win for both of us.
Absolutely.
That gets people to the library. Now, whether or not they're checking out books, who knows? But more than likely they are. If you step in a library and see all those books, more than likely you're going to read or check out books or have your children, participate in some of the programs that they have. But they also are using that pass just to come back and enjoy the museum.
So Miss Cindy, so basically a lot of this is just when COVID happened.
A lot of it is.
Everyone was it basically forced people to think outside the box.
Exactly.
And it really forced people to, I mean, we're all kind of just scrambling, no one really knew what to do. Right. There was no rule book in place that said, hey, when this happens, here's follow step 1, step 2. It's like, we're just kind of trying to use our guts and our minds and our imaginations to feel out a way to get through all this stuff. And I think that's really interesting that the library and y'all kind of join forces, because y'all feed right into one another, right?
We do. And I have to be honest, before COVID, I really didn't have that strong of a relationship with the library, other than, we would go over and do some of the summer programming with them, or we would provide passes for them for their summer reading, for the kids who participated in summer reading. And that was about the extent. Now we have this, this whole collaboration. We meet regularly, and we become great friends. And so it's just.
Well, I think that's great.
Yeah. And we've served over 1,300 families since 2023, June of 2023. That's how many families have come through using the library pass. And, it doesn't cost us anything, it's just a piece of paper, and then we're able to provide something positive for members of our community. So.
Yep, absolutely. Well, Miss Cindy, let's do a quick run through of what people can expect when they enter the Discovery Center, and then we'll kind of talk about how people can find how to come and enjoy it, and then where you're located and that kind of thing. So if someone was to come and park in the parking lot and walk in, what could a guest expect to see at the Discovery Center?
Well, the first thing they would see, of course, is all the beautiful oak trees that line the yard and the sidewalk where they enter. And I think that in itself is just a magnificent view. And we have a straight shot to the beach. I mean, when you are standing on the grounds of Lynn Meadows, you can physically see, the Gulf of Mexico. There's nothing blocking us at all. And so just the magnificent view in itself is beautiful. And so with that being said, we do have a lot of people who come here for weddings. They like to have their weddings here because it is a beautiful view. And I know that's not the question that you asked me, but so when you walk in, you see that, and you can either, continue to stay outside and enjoy the tree houses. We also have a little Bear Creek area where it's a little bubbly creek that runs along a path, and children can actually, scoop water up. They can splash in it. They can, just look at it if they want to. And then the south part of the property is where we have the decking area with the slate art and the musical instruments. And then kids can just run wild. They can have a fun time just running around the grounds. And then the other side of the parking area, we have Kid Street, and it's just little tiny houses that they can pretend that they are, a part of a little community there. We have bikes and trikes out there that they can ride on a asphalt area, and we'll find bikes throughout the entire grounds at the end of the night, because they take the bikes and they ride them everywhere.
Oh, I can only imagine.
Yeah, and they're fun bikes too. They're not your typical bikes that you see. They're designed a little bit different to withstand, lots of kids riding on them. But and then when you come in, of course, that's where all of the exhibits are housed, and that's where your imagination just gets to go wild, because everybody sees the exhibits in a different way. And the parents who come in and actually interact with their children, I think, have such a better time than the parent who goes and sits on the bench and doesn't interact with their children. So kids like it when their parents play with them, or their adult or grandparent or whoever's with them plays with them. And so there's just so many things that you can do. I mean, just in the pet vet alone, I actually have a family who comes from out of town every summer, from the Northeast to see the pet vet. That is what their children love. And they have made it an annual visit to come down here so their children can stay in the pet vet. And literally when they come, that's where they go, straight to the pet vet, and they play in there for hours. But one of the children wants to be a veterinarian when they grow up, and so I guess this is
It
their
kind of
way.
gives them some real world
Yes,
experience. Yeah.
but I mean, the pet vet is definitely a fun spot where children get to not only work on the animals, but they can also be the front desk person and take the phone call and
Right.
information into the computer, and do X-rays, and we have real X-ray machines, and so it is definitely real world and hands-on and interactive. We do have a toddler room. It's Bear Camp Bayou, and it's designed specifically for children 4 and under. And so we have a lot of families that take advantage of that. And it's a more secluded, quiet, but everything that's in there is designed for that age group. And then when you come around the corner, we have an art room. And like you said, your daughter enjoys art. So we do have children who come here specifically to do the art, because it's changing constantly. Every week we change out the activities in the art room. And it's not just coloring sheets. It's actually, have to think about what you're doing with your art. And you get to be creative, and you get to do your own designs, and there's a springboard for what we're teaching, but you're able to do it in your own way.
Right. Yeah. And I think that you are right. It isn't just coloring. So
No.
it's definitely something that she really looks forward to doing. Where would someone find you online? Or how would they go about getting passes to come? I know that they can show up at the facility, but is there an online presence or social media, something like that?
Yes, of course, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, and then our website is just lmdc.org. And as far as social media, I mean, we have a great following on our Facebook page. We post everything that's happening at the museum daily on our Facebook page. And of course, you can always call the museum. We still have telephones.
Oh
And
yeah.
we
Yep.
take a, we take a,
Lest we forget about those.
I know, but we do, believe it or not, we take a lot of phone calls daily. And we are open 7 days a week. And so the only days that we're closed basically are Christmas, New Year's, Thanksgiving. But the rest of the days we are open for business. And since COVID, our numbers I told you have increased drastically. And so that was one reason why we had to go to the 7-day model, because we were not able to support everybody in the community, because we do have a following now of homeschool families, and a lot of homeschool families do field trips together, and Mondays tend to be a big field trip day. So Mondays were traditionally our day closed, but not anymore. And Mondays is actually one of our busiest days of the week.
Well, I think that if someone was to drive up and locate you, where are you located?
We're at 246 Dolan Avenue, and that's Gulfport, 39507. We are 1 block off the beach. We're in between Courthouse Road and Tea Garden Road. And we have a sign on the beach that you cannot miss. And if if you turn at the Waffle House, you will be there. And we're located, it's a residential neighborhood.
I know. Yeah, it is.
Yeah. I mean, we've got houses across the street. We've got the greatest neighbors. They've always been so supportive and have always, they've never given us any problem for when we have big events and people are parking up and down the street. The neighbors have always been very kind to us about that. And they know the value of the museum. And I think that they, want to make sure that people are able to get to the museum. So.
Oh, absolutely. Well, yeah. I can't thank you enough, Miss Cindy, for coming on and kind of describing just even for a few minutes about this place that kind of is near and dear to the community down here on the Mississippi Gulf Coast. And, I appreciate the time and I appreciate all that y'all do over there. And if anybody listening wants to visit, you've just heard where you can go and do that. They do birthday parties there. They do a lot of events, seasonal events there. I've been to, whether it be daddy-daughter dances or, fundraising events or, it's a great time. So I would highly recommend anyone listening to go and visit the museum.
Thank you so much, Andrew. I really appreciate it. And look, the support that Allen Beverages has given to the museum over the years, actually since the beginning, I know that, y'all have been instrumental in being a partner to the museum. And that started, I'm sure, before 1998. And so,
yes, ma'am.
So thank y'all. And we thank you for your continued, support. And without our community supporters, we would not be where we are. So thank you so much to you and your family for always.
You're very welcome. You're very welcome. So I really appreciate it. Thank you, Miss Cindy.
Thank you so much, y'all.
It was a pleasure to dive into Lynn Meadows Discovery Center's inspiring journey and innovations with the wonderful Cindy DeFrances. From its historical roots, its resilience through Hurricane Katrina, to the heartwarming stories of children and families it continues to serve. Be sure to visit and keep up with all the things happening at the Lynn Meadows Discovery Center, a fun place for hands-on education and a true pillar of our community. A big thank you to all of our listeners for tuning in to Bottled Up, where we're all about uncorking the stories that shape our coastal home. And remember to always support our local businesses, restaurants, and attractions. Cheers. Thanks for listening to the Bottled Up Podcast. Want us to deliver this show to your email inbox as they drop? Want to tell us about how you like the show? Or do you want to tell us about a Gulf Coast business or restaurant that you'd like for us to spotlight in any upcoming episodes? Email Morgan Wheeler at mwheeler, MWHEELER at abevinc.com. That's ABEVINC.com. Want to know more about Allen Beverages and how we work with our clients, partners, and vendors? Check out allenbeverages.com. This show was edited and produced by Johnny Gwynn and Deep Fried Studios.